In Book 2, Chapter 3 of the Physics, Aristotle lays out the doctrine of the four causes. And this is one of the more famous aspects or passages from Aristotle's philosophy. What the four causes are, so what the basic idea is something like this. In order to fully or as fully as possible understand a thing, you need to understand all of the relevant causes or explanations of that thing. So people call it the doctrine of the four causes. A perhaps more accurate way of thinking of it is really the four explanations. There are four different kinds of explanations that you can give to a thing or for a thing. And so they're all supposed to be answers to something like a why question. Why this thing? And there are four different ways of answering such a question. These are the four causes. Right? And so Aristotle lays this out, this doctrine out in Book 2, Chapter 3. Now, Aristotle doesn't have a particularly handy way of referring to each of these four causes, but the later tradition, people who were influenced by Aristotle, medieval philosophers who were Aristotelian in certain ways, they gave names to each of these four causes, and by and large, everybody talking about the four causes now uses these names which medieval philosophers invented. So you don't find these names in Aristotle, but this is how I'm going to talk about them because this is how everybody talks about the four causes, and it lends greater clarity to Aristotle's views here. So the four causes are the material cause, the efficient cause, the formal cause, and the final cause. You don't find those words in Aristotle. He does not talk about the efficient cause or the formal cause or the final cause or anything like that. Instead, he says the following things or things like this. The material cause he refers to as that out of which. The efficient cause, the primary source of change. The formal cause, he'll call the essence of a thing or the definition of a thing. And then the final cause is that for the sake of which. So instead of using these kind of clunky phrases, medieval philosophers came up with these words, these phrases: material, efficient, formal, and final, to refer to these causes. So what exactly are these? How do each of these answer a why question? I think the best way to see this, and so to understand this doctrine of the four causes, is to go through some examples. Let's start with Aristotle's favorite example, a statue, right? A bronze statue of Zeus up in the temple or whatever. You have such a statue, you might want an explanation for it. Why that statue? Or how explain that statue to me, right? In some very general sense of why that statue. Explain that statue. Well, one way of answering such a question, one thing that you might be interested in, or that would at least add something to such a question, to an answer to such a question, would be to cite the bronze out of which it's made. Where did that statue come from? Well, from that lump of bronze. It's made out of bronze, right? That's in some sense an explanation of that statue. That's the material cause. The material cause of the statue of Zeus is the matter out of which it's made. Right? And that you can see that's an important explanation of the statue. It gives you some understanding of the statue. Easy enough. And so the material cause really just cites the matter of a thing. The efficient cause, the primary source of change. What on earth is that? The efficient cause is really, think of it like this. It's the source of the form of the thing in question. And so if we were to ask about the statue of Zeus, like where did it come from? Why this statue? One way that we might answer is sure by saying, oh, bronze or something like that, the material cause. But another way would be by citing its efficient cause. And in that case, what we'd be saying is something like the following. We'd be saying, oh, this statue? Why this statue? Well, because that sculptor over there made it. Right? The efficient cause of the statue is the sculptor. And this is the sense of cause of these four senses of cause that in certain ways most closely maps on to cause as we use it. What is the cause of the statue? The guy who made it, right? The way Aristotle conceives of that, what is the guy who made the statue do? He puts the form into the matter. So he combines the form with the matter, thus producing the statue, right? That's what the sculptor does. And so the way he thinks about efficient causation, the way Aristotle thinks about it, is that it's what puts the form into the thing that we're asking about, that we want an explanation of. Where did that thing get its form? And so in the case of a statue of Zeus, well, from the sculptor put the form into the statue, right? And so that's another way of trying to explain the statue of Zeus. Well, a third way of trying to explain it is by citing its form, its shape. Right? If you want to explain this statue of Zeus, it's not going to be sufficient to simply cite the bronze that it's made out of. That's not going to give you a full kind of explanation or understanding of the statue, because the bronze is shaped in a very particular way. And so if somebody's inquiring about the statue, simply telling them that it's made out of bronze isn't going to be sufficient. You're also going to need to tell them about the shape that it has, about the form of it, right? And so the formal cause refers to the form of the thing in question. And so we've seen the material cause, that's just matter, and we've seen the formal cause, that's just the form of the thing, right? So sensible things are composed of matter and form. And if you want to explain a sensible thing, Aristotle would say, well, you've got to, among other things, you're going to have to cite its material cause, which is just its matter, and its formal cause, which is just its form. Yeah, so that's easy enough. But then in addition, you need to cite where the thing came from, who put the form in that matter. Well, that's the efficient cause. But even those three aren't going to give you the full explanation. We also might wonder about what Aristotle calls that for the sake of which, but what later medieval philosophers called the final cause. So the idea here would be something like this. And this pretty closely maps on to the why question as we would ask it. If someone were to ask, why this statue of Zeus? The most natural way of reading that question is that it's asking for the final cause. Why did you make that statue? Yeah, I know that guy made it. I know that he made it out of bronze, and I know that it's like Zeus. It's got that Zeus shape. But why did you make it? For the sake of what did you make it? That's asking for the final cause. And who knows what it'd be? I don't know, something like worshiping Zeus or honoring Zeus or something like it, remembering Zeus, right? That's why you would make a statue of Zeus, yeah? That's the final cause. That's the purpose, right? The final cause is something like the purpose or end that you have in view. The purpose of the thing. Purpose, end, goal, so on. Another way that Aristotle thinks about it, it's the good that is achieved by the thing. Right? So for what good do we make a statue of Zeus? Well, it's to honor Zeus. We're trying to honor Zeus. That's our goal. That's our purpose. That's the good that we're trying to achieve. And so we make this statue. Consider another example more quickly. Take a house, right? The material cause of a house, it's going to be the stuff that it's made of. Bricks, floor joists, windows, etc. Right? It's not going to be carbon and hydrogen. We've already talked about that. It's going to be the matter for the house, what's right on the edge of accepting the form. The efficient cause, much like with the case of the statue, it's going to be the builder. The builder puts the form into that matter. And the formal cause of the house is going to be something like the arrangement of all those parts, the structure and arrangement, the shape that all those parts are supposed to take. And so you might think of that as something like the blueprint of the house, though again, not literally the blueprint, but the blueprint describes the arrangement and shape of these materials. And so that's something like the formal cause of the house. And the final cause, it's not going to be honoring Zeus, obviously. Why do we build houses? Well, to keep us warm, to keep us dry, right? To keep us comfortable, to protect us from elements, something like that. And, fine, what other things too, right? Protect your stuff, right? You can lock the doors and now people can't come steal your stuff, right? That's the final cause of a house. Okay, easy enough. Let's turn to more difficult cases now. And it's really these more difficult cases that Aristotle is most interested in. So the natural cases, animals, things like that, plants, living things. Material cause of a frog. We've already kind of talked about this, right? It's just going to be the matter of a frog, which is going to be the particular kinds of flesh and bones and organs and so on that constitute frogs. That's the material cause of a frog. And so if you wanted a kind of explanation of frogs, why frogs? Tell me about frogs. I want to understand frogs. One of the things you're going to have to cite is its material cause, which is all the stuff that it's made out of. And if you never said anything about its material cause, there would be a lack in your understanding of frogs. There would be something missing from the explanation of frogs. Yeah. Material cause of frogs. You need to know that if you're going to understand frogs. What is the efficient cause of a frog? Well, that's a little bit harder. All right. There's not like there's a frog maker out there, or is there? Here's someone would say, yeah, there is kind of. It's other frogs. Frogs make other frogs. Frogs beget frogs. And so where did this, let's say you have some, some particular frog in front of you, Kermit. Where did Kermit come from? Well, from Kermit's parents, right? Kermit was at some point whatever, right? A little tadpole. Before that was a little egg. And I don't really know how frogs reproduce or whatever, but I don't know how it works exactly, but whatever. The frogs reproduced and made Kermit. And so the efficient cause, what put the form of frog into that particular matter, thus producing Kermit, was Kermit's parents. So frogs beget frogs. So the efficient cause of a frog are other frogs. And the formal cause of a frog is going to be something like frog shape, something like the arrangement of those frog parts into a frog. Something like that. We're going to talk about that when we get to the deanima. And so we're going to, right? It's the form of frog, the frog shape or something, whatever that means. Right? Well, what is the final cause of frogs? That looks even harder. Right? Formal cause, that's kind of, not sure about that. But the final cause, what's the purpose of a frog or the goal or end of a frog? Well, Aristotle wants to say it's being a frog. That's the purpose of frogs. It's to live frog lives. The end or goal or purpose is to be a full, mature, a fully functioning adult frog. That's why they grow in the way that they do. That's why the tadpole sprouts little buds on the side of it and whatever, and then those buds grow into arms and legs and so on, right? It grows. The end of that process of growth is living a frog life. The end, the purpose, the goal of all those various changes that the tadpole undergoes is to be a mature adult frog. Being the mature adult frog, living an adult frog life, is that for the sake of which the frog goes and grows in the way that it does, and then engages in the particular activities that it does, right? Eating flies and sticking onto trees and croaking and whatever else they do, right? It does all this stuff for the sake of living its life, for the sake of living the frog life. And so the final cause of a frog is just living its life, living the fullest frog life, flourishing as a frog. Something like that. And again, we're going to talk about this in more detail as we proceed. One thing I want to point out at this point is that those three causes, the efficient cause, the formal cause, and the final cause, in the case of living things, overlap. They all, in one way or another, and we're going to see this more as we proceed, refer to the form. In Aristotle's view, what happens in reproduction is that the form is passed on. The frog parents pass on the form of frog to the baby frog, to the tadpole, whatever. And it's really the form of frog that is kind of being active, that is activated in reproduction. And so really, strictly speaking, the efficient cause is the form of frog. The form of frog in the parents is the efficient cause of little Kermit. And so really the efficient cause, it's like the form of frog. And then obviously the formal cause of a frog is the form of frog. But then the final cause of frog also is the form of frog. It's the kind of fullest actualization of that form. It's putting that form into activity, actualizing that form to the greatest degree, right? Part of Aristotle's idea is that form is that for the sake of which. So the tadpole sprouts its arms and grows in the way that it does for the sake of more fully realizing the form of frog, right? And then when you have a mature adult frog who is living a mature adult frog life, eating flies and so on and whatever, Aristotle conceives of that as the activity of the form of frog. And so even living the frog life, flourishing as a frog, refers to the form of frog. And so in the case of living things, those last three causes, the efficient cause, formal cause, and final cause, revolve around and refer to the form. Okay. One last example, because this is really what Aristotle is interested in, and it's really what we're interested in, the human being. So the material cause of a human being, no big question there. It's just the flesh and bones and organs and so on that human beings are made up out of. Easy enough. The efficient cause of a human being, having gone through the frog example, it's pretty clear what that's going to be. It's going to be other humans, or strictly speaking, it's going to be the form of human. So in particular, your parents. Might not want to think about that one too much, but there it is. The formal cause of human being is going to be, again, something like the human shape. In just the same way that we had the frog shape, the human shape, whatever that means, the form of human, I don't know, that's the formal cause, the essence of human, right? Because Aristotle also identifies these things with the essence of things. The human essence, the human shape, the human form, I don't know. What is that thing? I don't know. And then the final cause of human being is going to be, in the same way that it was for the frog, the activity of the form. And which is to say, living the human life, flourishing as a human being. That's the purpose of human beings, is to be the best human beings that they can be. The purpose of a frog is to be the best frog that a frog can be. The purpose of a human being is to be the best human being that a human being can be. Now, as I've already kind of indicated, it's unclear, so far at least, what exactly frog shape and human shape are, what exactly that means, what the essence of a human being or frog or whatever is, or the form of a frog, the form of a human being. And it's a little bit unclear what exactly it means to be the best human being that you can be. What does that exactly mean? What does it mean to flourish as a human being, to really live the human life? Say a bit more about that, Aristotle. Aristotle is going to oblige us. He's going to focus on both, and what we're going to focus on going forward are these last two items. We're also we'll have occasion to talk about frog shape and frog form, what exactly that is. But we're really going to be interested in the human case. What exactly is the human form or the human essence? That's what Aristotle is going to address in the next work that we're going to be reading, the De Anima. And so we'll fill in those question marks. We'll figure out what exactly that is in Aristotle's view by turning to the De Anima. What exactly is it to live the human life? To be the best human being you can be, or whatever else I was saying? We're going to turn to that question after the De Anima, where Aristotle is going to address that question in a work called the Nicomachean Ethics, right? And so that's the agenda going forward. So we've kind of started with form and matter, hylomorphism. And now we're going to start considering how exactly that applies to human beings. And in particular, we're going to inquire into the formal and final cause of human beings, the way the form of human being crops up in those two areas. What is the essence? What is the form or shape of a human being? And what is the purpose or goal or end or good of a human being?